The atmosphere inside the grand, opulent ballroom of the Logan Creations headquarters was nothing short of electric, pulsating with the kind of high-stakes anticipation that only a major fashion industry coup could generate. Hope Logan Spencer stood at the dazzling epicenter of this glamorous universe, bathed in the relentless, blinding glow of paparazzi flashbulbs and television crew spotlights. This was meticulously designed to be her ultimate moment of triumph, the glorious, public culmination of her shocking defection from Forrester Creations. The launch of the highly anticipated Hope by Logan collection had already sent seismic shockwaves through the elite circles of Los Angeles, effectively eclipsing Eric Forrester's heavily publicized return to haute couture. The expansive room was packed shoulder to shoulder with elite fashion journalists, influential international buyers, and high-profile socialites, all eager to hang onto every single word spoken by the industry's newest rebel darling. Hope, adorned in a stunning, avant-garde piece from her brand-new collection, projected an image of absolute confidence and empowerment, desperately masking the deep, lingering guilt she felt over betraying her mother, Brooke Logan Forrester. Beneath the polished, flawless veneer and the practiced, radiant smiles, Hope's internal world was a turbulent, chaotic ocean of conflicting emotions. She had risked absolutely everything, including her most precious family relationships, to step out from beneath the suffocating, immense shadow of the Forrester legacy, seeking the true creative autonomy that her aunt, Katie Logan Spencer, had so temptingly promised her. The crushing weight of Brooke's devastating disownment still pressed heavily upon her chest, a constant, dull ache that threatened to unravel her carefully constructed composure at any given moment. Yet, as she looked out at the vast sea of eager reporters and flashing cameras, Hope felt a surging, undeniable wave of validation. She had proven to the world that she was significantly more than just a Forrester figurehead. She was a true visionary in her own right. Or so she desperately wanted and needed to believe. She tightly clutched her luxurious designer tote bag, completely unaware that the very instrument of her impending, catastrophic doom was nestled quietly inside its leather confines. Standing just off to the side of the brilliantly lit main stage, Katie Logan Spencer and Bill Spencer were the very pictures of smug, calculated satisfaction and corporate triumph. They watched the media frenzy unfold with predatory grins, reveling in the absolute, undeniable success of their ruthless corporate masterstroke. Bill, ever the Machiavellian titan of industry, whispered congratulatory, arrogant remarks into Katie's ear, praising her unparalleled strategic genius for successfully hijacking the international press corps that Forrester Creations had spent millions of dollars assembling for their own event. They had successfully weaponized Hope's talent and name recognition to strike a lethal, humiliating blow against Ridge and Eric Forrester, and this press conference was intended to be the final, decorative nail in the coffin of Forrester's long-standing industry dominance. The Spencers were completely oblivious to the catastrophic, destructive storm that was currently marching down the hallway, ready to obliterate their momentary victory and plunge Logan Creations into an unprecedented public relations nightmare. Suddenly, the heavy, gilded double doors at the back of the grand ballroom were thrown open with such violent, aggressive force that they slammed against the walls, the echoing boom instantly silencing the excited chatter of 100 reporters. The flashing cameras abruptly ceased their relentless strobing, and a heavy, suffocating, terrifying stillness descended upon the crowded room. The massive crowd parted like the Red Sea, collectively holding their breath as a solitary, imposing figure stepped over the threshold. It was Ridge Forrester. His posture was rigid, his broad shoulders squared for battle, and his jaw was clenched so tightly that a muscle ticked visibly beneath his skin. His dark eyes blazed with an inferno of unadulterated fury, a terrifying, physical manifestation of the deep betrayal and public humiliation his family had endured over the past few grueling weeks. Ridge did not simply walk into the room. He marched with the terrifying purpose of a conquering general. Every heavy, deliberate footstep echoing on the polished marble floor sounded like the ominous beat of a war drum signaling impending destruction. In his tightly clenched, white-knuckled fist, He carried a thick stack of papers, the edges slightly crumpled from the sheer, uncontrollable force of his grip. The seasoned reporters, immediately sensing a dramatic eruption of epic proportions, frantically scrambled to clear a path, their journalistic instincts screaming that they were about to witness the absolute scandal of the decade unfold live. Ridge's piercing gaze was locked entirely on Hope, a laser-focused, intimidating stare that instantaneously stripped away her newfound confidence and left her feeling utterly exposed, vulnerable, and deeply terrified. The air in the room grew thick and icy cold, the glamorous, celebratory facade of the Logan press conference instantly evaporating under the scorching heat of Ridge's righteous indignation. For Ridge Forrester, this explosive moment was the inevitable culmination of weeks of agonizing, deeply personal betrayal. He had been forced to watch his beloved father, Eric Forrester, suffer immense public humiliation and a devastating, potentially fatal blow to his legendary legacy because of this exact event. He had witnessed his wife, Brooke, shatter into a million irreparable pieces over her daughter's cruel deception and defection. Ridge had previously declared an all-out, merciless war on the entire Spencer family, and he was here today to deliver the decisive, fatal strike that would end the conflict once and for all. He was not just fighting for the financial future of Forrester Creations. He was fighting for the very honor, integrity, and essence of his family's prestigious name. The papers tightly gripped in his hand were not mere sketches. They were the undeniable, physical proof of a crime so heinous, so deeply personal, that it demanded a brutal, public execution of Hope's burgeoning career. Without offering a single word of introduction or pleasantry to the stunned crowd, Ridge violently stormed the podium, physically imposing his large frame between a trembling Hope and the microphone. The sheer, intimidating proximity of his towering, furious presence caused Hope to instinctively take a frightened step back, her blue eyes wide with profound shock and utter confusion. "Did you really think you could get away with this?" Ridge's voice boomed through the sophisticated sound system, a deep, resonant, animalistic growl that reverberated in the chests of everyone present in the silent room. He did not wait for her to formulate an answer. He turned his imposing figure to face the sea of hungry reporters, holding the thick stack of papers high above his head like a victorious, ruthless gladiator displaying the severed head of his enemy. "You are all gathered here today to celebrate the supposedly brilliant, original vision of Hope Logan," Ridge sneered, his voice dripping with venomous, biting sarcasm. "But let me tell you the truth. There is absolutely nothing original about this collection. It is a complete fraud. A cheap, pathetic imitation built entirely on theft and malicious deception." Ridge violently slammed the stack of papers onto the wooden podium, the sharp, aggressive smack echoing through the ballroom like a gunshot. "These," he declared, his voice trembling with an uncontrollable, righteous rage, "are the original, highly confidential, private sketches of Eric Forrester. The very essence and soul of the haute couture line that my father poured his entire heart and genius into. The exact same line that was mysteriously and conveniently eclipsed by this pathetic Logan spectacle we see today." He turned his piercing, furious gaze back to a paralyzed Hope, pointing an accusing, unwavering finger directly at her pale face. "Hope didn't just leave Forrester Creations to find herself. She robbed us blind. She stole my father's legacy, his proprietary, unreleased designs, to salvage her own failing, uninspired ideas and build this counterfeit brand." The heavy, damning accusation hung in the tense air for a fraction of a second before the room erupted into absolute, deafening, uncontrollable chaos. Hope was completely and utterly frozen, transformed into a beautiful, tragic statue of horror trapped in the blinding, unforgiving glare of the media spotlight. The blood drained entirely from her face, leaving her ashen, cold, and visibly trembling. Her mind raced at 1,000,000 miles an hour, desperately trying to process the catastrophic, reality-shattering words tumbling from her former stepfather's mouth. Steal? Eric's private sketches? It was completely impossible. It was an outrageous, fabricated lie. She opened her mouth to speak, to vehemently and loudly deny the absurd, career-ending allegations. But her vocal cords were completely paralyzed by the sheer, suffocating magnitude of the shock. She looked down at the sketches scattered aggressively across the podium, instantly recognizing the unmistakable, masterful, flowing strokes of Eric Forrester's iconic hand. But how on earth did Ridge have them here? And why was he accusing her of taking them? The horrifying reality of the situation was entirely incomprehensible to her panicked, short-circuiting brain. But the furious Ridge Forrester was far from finished with his public execution. He knew that an accusation of this magnitude required undeniable, irrefutable proof, and he had come fully prepared to deliver the ultimate killing blow to Logan Creations. Reaching aggressively across the podium, Ridge snatched Hope's luxurious designer tote bag from the small display table where she had innocently placed it just moments before the press conference began. Hope gasped audibly, finally finding a tiny fraction of her voice to protest the invasion of privacy. But Ridge was far too fast and fueled by adrenaline. He unceremoniously upended the expensive bag, dumping its contents onto the stage in front of the world. Among the scattered makeup compacts, her smartphone, and the glossy Logan Creations press materials, a secondary, smaller, unmarked folder tumbled out. Ridge snatched it up with a triumphant sneer, ripping it open to reveal exact, high-quality photocopies of the very Eric Forrester sketches he had just slammed onto the podium. He held them up side by side for the relentless cameras to capture. The matching designs were undeniably identical. The evidence was damning, physical, and pulled directly from Hope's own personal belongings. The reaction from the assembled press corps was instantaneous, explosive, and utterly merciless. The momentary, stunned silence was permanently shattered by a deafening cacophony of aggressively shouted questions, loud gasps of disbelief, and the rapid-fire, mechanical clicking of hundreds of camera shutters. Flashbulbs strobed like a violent, unending lightning storm, blinding Hope and capturing every single agonizing, humiliating second of her public crucifixion. Hope, did you steal the designs from your grandfather? Is the entire Hope by Logan brand a total fraud? Katie, did you know about the corporate theft? The reporters surged forward toward the stage like a pack of starving, rabid wolves smelling fresh blood, their microphones thrust forward like spears. The entire narrative of the day had shifted in the terrifying blink of an eye. The triumphant, empowered rebel daughter had been instantaneously transformed into a malicious, thieving, corporate villain, caught red-handed on a global, viral livestream. As the media chaos violently swirled around her, the devastating truth of how those stolen sketches actually got into her bag remained a dark, sinister, closely guarded secret known only to one man currently in the room. Standing hidden in the dark shadows backstage, Deke Sharp watched the absolute destruction of Hope's life unfold with a sickening, heavy knot twisting violently in his stomach. The brilliant, youthful designs that had graced the Logan runway were indeed his own original creations, but the incriminating photocopies of Eric's sketches found in Hope's bag were entirely his doing. Just a few short hours before the press conference began, while Hope was completely distracted by the chaotic backstage frenzy of hair and makeup, Deke had stealthily and quietly slipped the damning folder into her tote bag. His hands had shaken violently, his conscience screaming at him to stop the betrayal, but the invisible, suffocating chains of blackmail wrapped around his neck were far too tight to break. Deke had not acted out of any personal malice or professional jealousy toward Hope. He had acted out of sheer, terrified, desperate obedience. He was merely a pawn in a much larger, much darker, and incredibly dangerous game, operating under the strict, uncompromising, and terrifying orders of a mysterious mastermind whose true identity remained completely shrouded in shadows. This unseen, malevolent puppet master had meticulously orchestrated the entire, elaborate frame-up, providing a terrified Deke with the copied sketches and threatening to completely destroy Deke's own rising, lucrative career, and perhaps even his life, if he did not comply with the sinister plan. Deke had been forced to trade Hope's pristine reputation and entire future for his own professional and personal survival, a tragic Faustian bargain that was now bearing its horrific, highly public fruit on the stage before him. He watched Hope's tear-streaked, devastated face through a small gap in the heavy velvet curtains, the crushing, unbearable weight of his profound betrayal threatening to completely suffocate him. On the stage, the terrifying paralysis gripping Hope finally broke, rapidly replaced by a sudden surge of desperate, frantic, survival-driven energy. Hope lunged toward the wooden podium, hot tears streaming down her pale face, her voice cracking painfully as she screamed over the deafening, relentless roar of the aggressive reporters. "No, no, this is a lie. I didn't do this. I swear I didn't do this," she shrieked, her hands gripping the hard edges of the podium so tightly her knuckles turned stark white. "I have never seen those copies before in my entire life. Someone put them in my bag. I was framed. Ridge, please, you have to believe me. I am being set up." But her desperate, heartbreaking pleas were entirely drowned out by the relentless, unforgiving onslaught of journalistic interrogation and the blinding, continuous flashes of the cameras. Her desperate truth was instantly buried beneath the overwhelming, visual, and seemingly irrefutable evidence of her apparent guilt. Standing near the back of the crowded room, having arrived just moments before Ridge's explosive, dramatic entrance, Brooke Logan Forrester watched the horrific scene unfold with absolute, unmitigated, paralyzing horror. Her heart pounded against her ribs like a trapped, frantic bird trying to escape. She had come to the press conference harboring a deeply complex, painful mix of maternal pride and lingering, bitter betrayal over Hope's defection. But this was a living nightmare far beyond her darkest, most terrifying comprehension. She was forced to watch her husband, the man she loved with every single fiber of her being, publicly and ruthlessly annihilate their daughter in front of the entire world. The sheer, unapologetic brutality of Ridge's verbal attack, the undeniable physical evidence he presented, and Hope's hysterical, broken sobbing created a vortex of emotional trauma that threatened to tear Brooke's very soul in two. This catastrophic, highly public event was the absolute, undeniable breaking point for the Forrester-Logan matriarch. Brooke's mind fractured under the impossible, crushing weight of the impossible situation playing out before her eyes. How could Hope possibly stoop so incredibly low as to steal from Eric, the man who had loved her like his own? But simultaneously, how could Ridge orchestrate such a vicious, calculated, and public execution of her child without coming to her in private first? The fragile foundation of Ridge and Brooke's legendary marriage, already severely cracked and strained by the ongoing corporate war and the deep-seated, bitter resentments between their feuding families, was now pushed to the very brink of permanent, irreversible destruction. The trust between husband and wife was entirely shattered, instantly replaced by a toxic, radioactive wasteland of harsh accusations, profound betrayal, and irreconcilable, agonizing pain. Brooke stood completely paralyzed, unable to rush forward to comfort her disgraced daughter, unable to support her furious, vengeful husband, trapped forever in a torturous purgatory of familial devastation. The Logan press conference, meticulously designed by Katie and Bill to be the glorious, triumphant dawn of the Hope by Logan empire, had rapidly and violently devolved into a catastrophic, burning funeral pyre for Hope's entire career. As overwhelmed security guards rushed the stage in a desperate attempt to hold back the surging, aggressive tide of hungry reporters, Hope stood completely isolated in the center of the terrifying chaos, a tragic, broken, weeping figure illuminated by the merciless, unforgiving glare of the media. In a matter of agonizing minutes, her pristine reputation had been entirely incinerated into ash. She was no longer hailed as a fashion visionary. She was instantly branded a thief, a fraud, and an industry pariah. The mysterious mastermind's sinister plot had been executed with flawless, devastating precision, leaving a destroyed Hope screaming her absolute innocence into a dark void that had already convicted her in the court of public opinion. The landscape of Los Angeles fashion was permanently, violently altered, and Hope Logan Spencer was left entirely alone to navigate the dark, treacherous, and terrifying ruins of her completely destroyed life.